social sciences, research methodology for social sciences and social sciences in general, based on Vedic philosophy, Vedic foundations, and all that. In this series, we are focusing more on humanities also, and in this, what is humanities? What is generally is called as humanities, and what are called as social sciences, and all that also we need to discuss. And let me uh, share a screen. Are you able to see the screen? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Now, let us see what is called as humanities. This, for most of those of you who are familiar with the university system, you already know what we mean by humanities. But for those who are not familiar with this system, let me just give you an overview, a broad overview of these disciplines. As all of you know, the
Nagaraj,
university system.
could you adjust your camera to show more of your face? It's yes, that's better. Thank you. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So most of you know that the university system, when it started, in the beginning, almost all the academic disciplines used to be called as arts. And those were the days when even there were courses like BA Chemistry, Bachelor of Arts in Chemistry, and Master of Arts in Physics, where science courses, what we today call as basic sciences, hard sciences, even courses in those disciplines were also called as courses in arts. And gradually we came to a stage where people started dividing arts and sciences, and physics, chemistry, botany, zoology, all such sciences got classified under sciences, basic sciences. And you have arts. And even today, if you see most of the universities, there is a school of arts or faculty of arts, or they call it as arts college. Within that, you don't have physics, chemistry, botany, zoology kind of courses. Now there is a very clear bifurcation between arts and sciences, where by classifying certain academic disciplines under arts, the university system is telling you that they are not sciences. Basically, by classifying them under arts, they are telling you that they are not sciences. And when you go to that college, school of arts or faculty of arts or arts college, what you see is a certain number of disciplines. uh, these disciplines, for example, are social sciences. Under arts you have social sciences, and in some colleges even these disciplines which come under social sciences are classified under arts only. For example, you see economics, political science, sociology, anthropology, which is called ethnology. In East European countries, they use the word ethnology for anthropology. And you have within anthropology, within ethnology, you have physical anthropology, and the other one is cultural, which is also called as social anthropology. And you have disciplines like linguistics, psychology, commerce. All these are classified under social sciences, and those also usually come under arts only. But you have a new classification recent classification under arts itself as humanities. And when you are calling them humanities, you are very clearly saying that they are not sciences. That is what you are saying. When you classify them under humanities, and very clearly you are saying you are classifying them under humanities because they don't come under social sciences. So social sciences are sciences, but you did not call them sciences. You did not classify them under physics, chemistry, botany, zoology kind of sciences, which means that they are not perfect sciences. Perfect sciences are physics, chemistry, botany, zoology kind of sciences only, life sciences and sciences like physics and chemistry. You have social sciences, which we have seen earlier, economics, political science, all these disciplines, which are nowadays being called as social sciences, where by adding that prefix social, you are saying that they are sciences, but not sciences. But they are somewhat sciences, somewhat not sciences. They are not as perfect sciences as physics, chemistry, botany, zoology, etc. So you have the midway sciences like social sciences, which are today in some colleges called as arts. And what are these humanities? If you go to your university, what you see under humanities is they call it a department of English literature, a department of Tamil literature, department of Sanskrit literature. In the Western universities, you have department of classics, a department of classical literatures, which cover Greek, Latin kind of literatures, and one department called philosophy, philosophy that comes under humanities. There are certain disciplines which are always controversial in their classification in the taxonomy of whether they have to go into humanities or social sciences. Those are history kind of things. If you come to this list, if you see, you're able to see that under philosophy, later to philosophy, you have history. History, if you talk to a history scholar, history professor, history teacher, he never agrees that he comes under non-sciences. He comes under sciences only according to him. But universities hardly put history under social sciences. They put it under humanities, sometimes under social sciences. And archaeology, epigraphy, all these fields, they go alongside history. And each of these, archaeology, if you talk to an archaeologist, he says mine is a science, but people hesitate to classify archaeology under sciences. And we have another set of fields under what is called as fine arts. If you go to a university, there is a department of fine arts, and under fine arts you have departments of music, dance, sculpture, theater, film and television, which is sometimes classified under media department and the communication department and so on. All these are classified under fine arts. And according to the science classification, fine arts are not sciences at all. Fine arts departments are not dealing with sciences at all, because they are teaching entertaining skills. So they are teaching some skills. In my experience of working in universities, I have observed that the faculty and the students of these fine arts departments themselves also have a feeling that their work, their academic work, their study inside the university also is in the form of learning skills and teaching skills. Learning dance, teaching dance, learning music, teaching music. But all this so-called research, analysis and all that, it's not my cup of tea, is the usual feeling there. So they're all they think that they are there for practical work, teaching, performance and all that. And it goes very well with the perception about fine arts departments from the other departments like humanities departments, like English literature department or political science department or physics department. If you talk to a physics department person about the fine arts department, like music department or dance department also, their view about fine arts departments like music and dance also is that they are not sciences. Because they are there only to perform and teach how to perform, learn how to perform a certain entertaining activity and all that. But if you come to Indian divisions, what you see in the Indian system is, if you go to fine arts, you have Sangeeta Shastra. It is called Shastra. If you go to dance, you have Natya Shastra. It is called Shastra. If you are talking of sculpture, architecture, idol making, you have sciences like Sthapatya Shastra, Vastu Shastra, Shilpa Shastra, Vigraha Nirmana Shastra, Rupaka Shastra, Alankara Shastra. All these belong to fine arts. So you are in the Vedic system, in the Indian system, in the pre-modern, ancient Indian, medieval Indian academics, there was always a Shastra about an art, fine art, particularly I'm talking about fine arts. And if you come to humanities, for example, you have English literature department or Tamil literature department. You go to any regional Indian literature department in India, in the course you have Alankara Shastra. They include Alankara Shastra as part of Sanskrit literature department or Kannada literature department or Malayalam literature department, Tamil, Telugu literature department, Hindi literature department. They include Alankara Shastra. So there is a Shastra there. And if you go to English literature department, it is not so. In English literature department, there is no course which is called a science of something. If you go to English literature department, you have, for example, the most of the English literature departments, before the whole cultural studies movement started overwhelming the English literature departments all over the world, proper literature studies, when they used to take place in English literature departments, the majority of the literature study was in the form of study of literary criticism. Literary criticism was the field. And this literary criticism was considered to be both a science and activity. You are a critique. When you are a critique, you are critiquing, you are writing literary criticism. It's an activity. But there is a theory behind it, there is a science behind it. There was, for example, I.A. Richards, who is considered to be one of the stalwart figures of English literary criticism. He writes a book called Meaning of Meaning. And one of the powerful arguments he comes up with is that literary criticism is a science. There is a claim that literary criticism is a science, but it's not included under some science. What literary criticism has in its background is what is called as poetics. This word poetics comes from the Greek word poetics that was used by Aristotle and by the time of Aristotle. And it has got that kind of a tradition, Greek tradition. And whether poetics was a science or not was not very clear. Whereas in the case of Alankara Shastra, you have a very clear word called Shastra. It is called Shastra. And the field called poetics that you had in Greek literature is included in English literature departments. Unfortunately, what happened is when the regional literature departments in India started, they started calling Alankara Shastra as poetics. a field which was already claiming itself to be a Shastra was being compared to or translated into a field which was not confident enough to call itself a science. And they started feeling inferior that, okay, all that we have is just some Alankara Shastra, but we do not have literary criticism. That is a wonderful field that is coming from the Western study of literature and all that. And they thought, they started downplaying the powerful nature, Shastric nature of Alankara Shastra by putting it under, in a hierarchy, under a literary criticism of the West. That is how the Shastric nature of Alankara Shastra got downplayed and got relegated. And in the case of social sciences also, if you come to social sciences also, you see we have Artha Shastra. It is calling itself as Shastra. You have Niti Shastra. It is calling itself as Shastra. And you have Dharma Shastra. It is calling itself as Shastra. And in the fields that are called as humanities, for example, study of literature, if you come to this column under humanities, apart from Rupaka Shastra and Alankara Shastra, you have Chandas Shastra, you have an entire Shastra for studying the meters uh, in which poems are composed, and you have Vyakarana Shastra, which is a Shastra for grammar, for the analysis of a language. You have darshanas, which actually we have mentioned darshanas here because under humanities, in the present university system, what you have is philosophy. Under philosophy, you study things which come under darshanas. For example, if you go to a present university philosophy department, you have. Am I able to hear something?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Philosophy, under philosophy department, we have something called logic, and this field, logic, is studied under darshanas as a Nyaya Darshana for us. And you have hermeneutics, which is studied under philosophy department in the present university system, which is studied under Mimamsa as one of the darshanas for us. And you have application of Nyaya to Vaisheshika, so that becomes Vaisheshika Darshana. And what is studied under various other areas, like, for example, what is studied under ethics, social philosophy in the philosophy department, comes under Dharma, the discussion of Dharma and Dharma Shastra. So, there again, you have a claim that this is a Shastra. Dharma, study of Dharma is a Shastra. So, what we are going to show throughout this series of talks, in this present series, is that there is one tradition that is already considering some knowledge areas as Shastra, and the same knowledge areas in the present university system, in the present contemporary university academics, is not being called as Shastras. With a low self-esteem, these fields like humanities, fine arts, and social sciences also have that low self-esteem when they compare themselves to the perfect sciences, physics, chemistry, botany, zoology, which claim themselves to be perfect sciences. Always these social sciences look up to those perfect sciences and try to see how much of that nature of that perfect science, for example, how much of mathematical nature, how much of quantitative analysis, how much of logical positivism, how much of experimentation, how much of replicability, how much of predictability, uh, all these features of the perfect sciences are there in themselves. And then to that extent they say, okay, I'm a science because I have the same feature of replicability. I am a science because I am able to experiment it. I am a science because I have the same empirical nature, logical positive nature, uh, and everything. So the measures of scientific nature of a discipline are all borrowed from the perfect sciences, the basic sciences, and social sciences either have a low self-esteem or ranking of themselves under sciences on the basis of how much of those qualities of perfect sciences are there in social sciences or not. Whereas in this system of Shastra, you you have a word Shastra, which does not uh, come from the measures that are there for perfect sciences. A Shastra is not called a Shastra because it has got mathematical nature, or it has got quantification, or it has got measurability, or all these features. But nevertheless, there are commonalities of rigor, logical analysis, rigorous argumentation, rigorous abstraction of reality into categories, and observing the relationships between these entities in a very logical fashion. All the features that you see in sciences, such features of sciences, are there in Shastra also. And Shastra is not something, Shastra is not claiming itself to be uh, just an art which is an entertaining skill or something like that. When you see a Shastra, the Shastra's Shastric nature is in its rigorousness, rationality, logical nature, perfect argumentation, and analysis, interpretation of facts, of reality, into a highly systematic study of things. So, based on that, based on the exactness, nowadays, actually, at Triple IT Hyderabad, when they wanted to start Indic based humanities, Vedic foundation based humanities, they used the word exact humanities. I think this has been used in some Western universities also, the word exact humanities. So that exactness uh, is there in Shastra. So that exactness, that rigor, that shastric nature that you have in the traditional Vedic foundations, in the Indic foundations, if that can be provided to the present humanities all over the world, our confidence is that humanities will start losing the low self-esteem that they have today. Basically, they start losing the feeling that they have to be classified under humanities because they are not sciences. So, what these series of talks is trying to show with examples, with proof, with evidence, is that the knowledge areas which are being covered under humanities, like study of literature, philosophy, all these areas need not look up to sciences, need not look up to those perfect sciences and say that, okay, you guys are science people, we are not, we are not logical people, we are not rigorous people, we are some guys who sit somewhere studying literature, talking about poetry, enjoying poetry, and all that. Okay, you guys be in your own scientific thinking. We have no scientific thinking at all. We are not bothered about that. Or sometimes measuring up, like I.A. Richards does in literary criticism, claiming that, oh, no, 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 I'm a science also. I have some scientific nature. I'm trying to be a science and all that. This inferiority, this low self-esteem would go definitely once we show on the basis of how the same knowledge areas have been studied in a shastric way. For example, theater, how drama, how a play has been rigorously studied. For example, the plot of theater, plot of drama, how through Panchasandhi analysis in Rupaka Shastra, what a rigorous analysis of plot has been done in a very Shastric way on the basis of Shastric foundations, how it has been done, and all such material that we have from Rupaka Shastra, how the taxonomy, the classification of Rupakas, classification of characters, Prakritis in a Rupaka, and what are the stage performance aspects, practical aspects of stage performance, how in a very Shastric way they have been analyzed. Everything that if we can bring into the departments of literature and provide it as a global offer to the entire global world, that there is a Shastra that has been developed in a particular subcontinent on the globe, where the same topic that you are also studying in, say, South America or North America or Africa or Japan or China, the same knowledge areas have been studied in a very rigorously logical, scientific, systematic, abstracted way. If we can show, I think it will benefit them. It will benefit basically in the form of gaining a confidence, and also there are practical benefits out of that kind of a rigorous analysis. One kind of practical benefit I would show, for example, for literature analysis or Alankara Shastra, is the experiment we did recently at MIT School of Vedic Sciences. We conducted workshops on the modeling of the Shastras based on the aesthetic Shastras, aesthetic related Shastras, how to model, for example, you in a way useful for computers, how artificial intelligence activities can be done, how, for example, sentiment analysis can be done, and how aesthetic communication can be generated through a machine. All these experiments are going on all over the world today, in a computer centric world today. But they're looking for solutions, and we thought uh, those solutions are already available in the sciences of aesthetics, Shastras of beauty, Shastras of bliss, Ananda, in the Indian system. And there is another application example, design, for example. Uh, I taught design aesthetics based on the Vedic foundations, where we are able to see how uh, why a certain design is accepted as more beautiful or not. The reasons can be found from Alankara Shastra, how rigorously Alankara Shastra provides categories and methods and tools for analysis of aesthetics of design. Also, we have shown through that kind of a course. Many such applications. Actually, the whole series of talks started during our recent discussions about governance, for example. Uh, we were talking about how governance has been discussed in the Indic system. And during that time, we were talking about governance, not just as a part of state, a part of public sector, governance as a part of private sector also. Governance is a very general concept, and how the discussions of governance can be benefited from the Shastra that we have, for example, Artha Shastra, not just the articulated Artha Shastra in the form of Kautilya's, Chanakya's book of Artha Shastra. You have an entire Artha Shastra that comes from epics like Ramayana, Mahabharata, uh, and there are Shastric works that have been compiled based on such Itihasa Purana discussions. And one more thing I would like to add is that today, because we are now sitting, we are uh, just walking a little backward, and we are looking behind, and we are able to see that this whole field, this governance or law and ethics, environmentalism, beauty and bliss, these areas that we are able to see, they probably were not called with those names in the ancient systems. For example, even in Greece, did we have a field called governance? I don't think we had. In the same way, in the Indian system also, in the ancient Indian, the Vedic system also, we might not have demarcated or delineated a field called governance with that name. And the connections among these various shastras that we were talking about also probably were not so very clearly established. For example, while teaching Arthashastra or studying a book of Arthashastra of Kautilya, probably how Arthashastra's foundations are lying in a particular darshana, they are lying in a darshana like Mimamsa or Vedanta, or how dharma is connected to Vedanta, the concepts borrowed from Vedanta like Brahman or liberation or self, all these concepts, that probably was not properly spelled out. And probably that kind of an exercise was not done, and people probably did not come up with such books also. We do not have a book like the Vedantic foundations of Arthashastra or something like that, or self-analysis for Arthashastra and all that. It is for us to do now. These series of talks and even the whole endeavor later to these talks also is meant to bring that kind of analysis. When we do governance analysis, we are not limiting ourselves to the analysis of governance from Arthashastra alone, or from an Itihasa like Ramayana or Mahabharata alone. We are intending to connect the principles of governance right from the concepts of Dharma, right from the concepts of Brahman and Atman, that is self, and connect it to Vedanta, and see how the analysis of governance can be benefited from there. For example, today in a political science department, you have people who are interested in an environmentalist approach to governance, environmentalist approach to state, how state can be an environmentally friendly state and all that. But I don't see a conventional political science department having a course on environmentalist politics, a separate course on environmentalist political science. Whereas here in this series of talks, we are going to show how Dharma, the concept of Dharma, is essentially environmentalist. I'm going to show you through my analysis. And that concept of Dharma is essentially part of the governance analysis. That is, for example, Raja Dharma. When you talk of Raja Dharma, that is, we can translate it as a state ethics, governance ethics. There, because Dharma is already essentially environmentalist, even governance is an environmentalist concept. That kind of inherent, already established, already existing connections between environmentalism and governance, we would like to bring out through these series of talks on the Vedic foundations of these fields. And if you go to, say, environmentalism also, what we have used the word environmentalism here, ism as an ideological stance. But what you have is today in the university system a field called environmental studies. That field is called environmental studies, and this environmental studies has two different origins. Mostly the environmental studies departments come from botany. There they use the word ecology, or you have another environmental studies departments which have origins in geography departments. But gradually these departments went into industrial environmental studies, that is environmental chemistry, environmental engineering. All these words have been coined, and you have, as part of engineering colleges, for example, Jawaharlal Nehru Technological University has got a very big full-fledged environmental engineering department. You have environmental chemistry courses all over the world now. So these are environmental studies departments. But whether these departments are ideologically oriented towards environmentalism or not is not very clear. Though every environmental studies department, whether it is environmental engineering, environmental chemistry, or environmental studies from geography or ecology from botany, they all have a self image about themselves that ideologically they are environmentalistically oriented. But how far are they really environmentalistically oriented comes out only when you go into the philosophical foundations on which their study is based. And such philosophical foundations, how much very well articulated they are already in the Vedic system of environmental approach, will be brought out through these series of talks, where we will show that essentially the foundations of approach to nature, approach to humans, approach to animals, approach to reality in India was ideologically, environmentalistically, eco-friendly oriented approach it was. And that way we can, once that is established, we can take it into any other aspect of environmental studies that is happening in the university system, both at the professional courses and the academic courses in the university system. So again, if you come to fields like law and ethics, uh, I think most of you know. For those who do not know, I would like to tell you that in ancient Greece, ethics and aesthetics were considered to be two different hands of the same entity. They were considered to be two most important aspects of philosophy and approach. And because you are able to see that they have been separated, ethics and aesthetics have been separated as two arms. You are able to see that they are not connected there. But if you see in the Vedic system, the foundations of ethics and the foundations of aesthetics both come from the foundations, say, for example, of Taittiriya Upanishad's Ananda concept can be a basis for both ethics and aesthetics. Uh, for example, one of the foundational ideas of ethics is empathy, and one of the foundational ideas of aesthetics also is empathy. Empathy, Atmavat Sarva Bhutani, look at all the creatures as self, as yourself, or as one's own self. This Atmavat Sarva Bhutani kind of empathetic attitude is the foundation, say, for example, within Vedic aesthetics. Even those of the Western scholars of Indic culture, who are not so favorable towards Indic culture agree that one of the greatest contributions of Indic knowledge systems to the whole world, to the whole global world today, is the concept of rasa. That very word rasa, it does not exist. It is an untranslatable. It's a beautiful concept. There is no equivalent concept in any aesthetics of the world. They have agreed. Even those anti-Indic Indologists, or those who are not so favorable to the foundations of Vedic knowledge and all that, even they agree that rasa is a beautiful concept. And that rasa concept has got empathy as its basis. Empathy of the audience with the character is the foundation of rasa. And what is the basis of ethics also? What is the basis of dharma also? The dharmic behavior also is based on empathy. So if you look at such connections, you would be able to realize that these fields that are apparently from the superficial observation, you would think that ethics and aesthetics are two different fields. You are talking about good or bad, you are talking about right or wrong, but you're not talking about something beautiful, ugly, and all that. So they are two different fields. But if you look at the Vedic foundations, if you look at the Indic foundations, you're able to see that they are very well connected inside through a certain philosophical approach, through a certain inward contemplative, introspective approach of personality study and all that. Talking of personality study, again, we come to this field here. You are able to see human behavior and personality as one of the fields that we are intending to cover. That comes under psychology today. And you have, say, for example, in a contemporary political science department in any university, do we have a psychology course as part of political science course? I don't think. What happened as a later development inside the political science departments is these departments, political science departments, started study of public administration. The Woodrow Wilson, they quote from United States as the beginner of such kind of study. And if you go to public administration as an academic discipline, there you have organizational behavior and all these which come under management also as one of the professional fields. And under organizational behavior, you have what is called as psychology. So gradually you are able to see that a political science department through public administration as part of organizational behavior, which is part of public administration, is getting into psychology. But if you look at Indic systems, if you look at the Vedic systems, you're able to see that the same foundations of, say, how human actions are motivated by Panchakosha system. The different koshas like Anandamaya kosha as the foundation, and the outermost kosha, Annamaya kosha, how they are all connected. You are able to see that the same foundation is guiding all the human actions, including the dharma action, law and governance and aesthetics. Everything is coming from such basic foundations. So what you have in psychology is Vedic psychology, if you call it, or Indic psychology, if you call it, is there in all the other fields also, governance, law, ethics, and all that. When we are able to see that these knowledge areas are so interwoven as a network with some common philosophical foundations in the Vedic system, we are able to, I think, go to a certain development in the present university system, what is called as interdisciplinarity and multidisciplinarity. All the conventional disciplinary boundaries that we are able to see in the form of arts and sciences. That is why we were using the word conventional divisions, fine arts, humanities, social sciences, and within that economics, anthropology. All these are gradually fading out. No longer are people interested in, say, a certain anthropology department or political science department as a watertight compartment. You have centers now. Mostly there are centers, center for, say, knowledge management. There is a center for knowledge management. There is a center for wellness studies, center for gender studies, center for social inclusion studies, something like that. So you are able to locate problem areas, researchable problem areas, and for these areas, multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary studies are emerging, and that is the fashion of the day today. This conventional uh, departmentalization or compartmentalization of knowledge areas is no longer fashionable. The reason is because essentially these knowledge areas have got those foundational connections, but that is not coming out through these interdisciplinary centers that are being established in the university system. All these interdisciplinary centers that are being established in the university, the contemporary university system, they are emerging from the problem area. The problem area is what is connecting these various conventional departments into one interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary center inside the university system. But it is not the realization of the university academics that there are some foundational connections among all these disciplines that are compelling such an interdisciplinary approach or interdisciplinarity or multidisciplinarity that is bringing them all together. So that kind of knowledge area identification. For example, we are identifying areas like creativity, for example. Creativity is the area that is useful for fine arts departments. Okay, people agree. Uh, no one doubts that it is useful. But in English literature departments, how many people talk about creating poets? Do English literature departments create poets, English poets? Telugu literature department, Tamil literature, Marathi literature departments, do they create poets? No. The usual traditional conventional approach to any literature department is that you are creating analyzing scholars, criticizing scholars, that is critiquing scholars, but not creative people. Whereas Indic approach was that Alankara Shastra can be useful for analyzing a kavya. At the same time, Alankara Shastra can be made into a Kavishiksha Grantha. You can create a Kavisikshana through a Kavishiksha Grantha. That kind of approach of creativity being created through an English literature department or regional literature department, that comes out from this approach. So for this, what has to happen is that creativity has to be identified as an academic problem area. And once you identify creativity as an academic problem area, at this Rashtraam University that is established by one of our Indic friends, Shobit Mathurji, and these people at Delhi, they wanted to start a course on creativity. Because the question of creativity is, the aspect of creativity is useful for running a state, for running a government department, for being a creative leader of public affairs, or you can be a creative manager, you can be a creative corporate leader. You can, creativity is an area which is useful for so many different fields, not limited to music, dance, drawing, painting, sculpting, and all that. So this realization has already come. Universities are already recognizing, but how much Indic foundations, Vedic foundations can revolutionize, can offer a breakthrough contribution to the development of creativity, to giving creativity to not only humans, even to the machines, or from that kind of a rigor that can be given to machines, how much that can benefit even human beings. All such foundations of understanding of creativity, how creativity emerges, how the Indic foundations of knowledge have found secrets of analyzing creativity and creating creativity. All this, that has to be identified. What we are trying to do is that this kind of identification of these knowledge areas, a new taxonomy of what they call interdisciplinary. Interdisciplinary because already disciplinary bifurcations, disciplinary contours, all these disciplinary boundaries have been drawn by them conventionally for several hundred years, right from the foundation of universities in the Europe. uh, they have already created disciplines. So the knowledge areas, when they want to approach, they think that now they are doing interdisciplinary. They are thinking that they are doing multidisciplinary. Okay, you have to approach the audience from their known to their unknown. Their known is their conventional disciplines. Their unknown is their problem area, the knowledge area. And to that known to unknown, what you're doing is from the conventional disciplines, you're going to that interdisciplinarity, what they call interdisciplinarity. So let us say creativity is an interdisciplinary knowledge area, in interdisciplinary discipline, interdisciplinary field. And uh, language also is it's a communication. Language is a communication. But gradually, the one beautiful thing I would like to share with all of you is that gradually their pursuit of knowledge itself in the contemporary university system, it is bringing the present academics, contemporary academics, closer and closer to the Indic systems, the Vedic systems. An example I will give you in the case of language and linguistics. Let us take the word Vyakarana, which is which is translated as grammar in English. If you go to the origin of the word grammar, it comes from the root called grapheme, which means writing. And the word grammar was used as part of the name of a book, a Greek grammar called Techne Grammaticae. And that book, Techne Grammaticae, the name of the book, if you translate, it is telling you technique of writing, if you translate that word. So all the grammars originally in the Western world, in the European world and other Western countries, they began with the techniques of writing, how to write. But if you look at the word Vyakarana, the word Vyakarana comes from the root Kri in Sanskrit, and the root Kri means do, and you have two prefixes V and A, V plus A plus Kri, Vyakri. Vyakri means to split an entity into different parts. Vyakriyante vivichya pradarshante anena padaha iti vyakaranam. Is the definition that Patanjali gives in Mahabhashya. So this vivichya pradarshanam of the words. Vivichya is separate, to make into parts. Vivichya is kvartaka. So after splitting a word into its parts, you are pradarshante. You are showing it the world. So you already have an entity called pada, shabda, word, and you are analyzing it and showing. So language study for Vyakarana was analyzing an entity into parts, whereas grammar was the techniques of writing. But if you see the history of grammar in the Western world, after grammars, through philology of the early 19th century, through people like Franz Boas or Grimm's brothers and all these, gradually the whole world has come close to what is called as linguistics. What does linguistics do? It does the same thing. Yakriyante vivicha pradarshante anena shabdaha. So from grammar, they came to Vyakarana through linguistics. So this kind of analysis of language, which is already done in the Vedic system, in the Sanskrit system, if you look at Bhartrharis, for example, Vakyapadiyam, and all the Artika Granthas that came in the tradition of Vakyapadiyam, like Vaiyakarana Laghu Manjusha and Bhushana Sara, all these books, there is a universal linguistic analysis provided there. And one more thing is that today language analysis has expanded into communication analysis. In communication analysis, people use words like signifier and signified instead of word and meaning. Word becomes signifier and meaning becomes signified. So the words signifier and signified uh, expand the scope of language analysis into a broader communication analysis. For example, if there is a gesture, gesture is the signifier, and the meaning communicated through the gesture is the signified. And the signifier signified analysis is traced back to Saussure, Ferdinand Saussure, who in his book brought long and parole. And if you see the roots of Saussure, his roots are in Bhartrhari, his roots are in Vakyapadiyam. He was a very good Sanskrit scholar, and his book on language, which is considered to have revolutionized the signification analysis through the ideas of Long and Parole, and later influenced people like Noam Chomsky and all this. They have that kind of a Vedic foundation. What today we are able to see is that they have not explored enough of the use of language analysis that is done in the Artika Granthas like Vakyapadiyam, Bhartrhari and all that. If enough analysis, if further analysis of that is done, it is going to benefit. For example, today people are able to realize that Bhartrhari's concept of spota is useful for film studies. Film institutes are teaching spota, and it is how it is useful for all fine arts analysis, all creativity analysis, whether it is creativity of public leadership or corporate leadership or wherever, how spota analysis, how the approach of communication, how the approach of language is so broadly applicable to various human fields is gradually being realized, and people are able to come to that. And we are here to show you how there are so many unexplored areas within this language analysis, which is not limited to Vyakarana. Let me tell you, Mimamsa, Nyaya, and other darshanas also are engaged in language analysis in a very big way. They have Shabda Bodha and the cognition. Shabda Bodha is all about cognition, and how that kind of cognition analysis is useful for other fine arts also. And as a basic methodology of human analysis, basic methodology of human studies, how it is useful, all such inner connections, foundational connections can be made once we realize that these are knowledge areas which have already been interconnected in their foundations. We did not realize, and our conventional contouring of disciplines, academic disciplines, was what was wrong. It was not the fault of the disciplines, it was the fault of disciplining by the early academicians of universities that have happened. So that we are going to show. And coming to areas like history, today all over the world there is a realization that history as the history is no longer valid. People talk about histories, multiple approaches to history, and when you talk of subaltern history, for example, subaltern historiography, uh, you are talking of oral histories, and you are saying that oral histories presented by people from a very postmodern kind of approach are multiple perspectives of the same happenings. So there is no question of one history that has to be accepted. And once you agree that there are multiple histories possible, then there is no question of saying that this is not history at all, this is not historically valid. This is very similar to this is not scientific kind of thing. You have an account of the past in a particular community in a particular way, and you say that no, no, this is Pauranika, this is mythological, this is not historically valid. It is no longer valid because you now know that there is no the history, there are histories as plural. And also, there are even deeper questions of linear time and cyclic time, and looking at the past through a cyclic time approach and linear time approach. And within time also, there is a, just as you have a landscape, which is physical geographical landscape as different from the inner world landscape of archetypes. And there is a travel, inner contemplative world travel, and that being articulated through literature, inner world entities being articulated through literature, archetypal entities being articulated through literature. Now people talk about it, people very well know after Jung and Joseph Campbell and Kantian German romanticist philosophical understanding and all that, you know, very clearly through Northrop Frye and all these people, how the inner world landscape and the travel inside the contemplative inner world landscape is being articulated as though it is a geographical landscape. In an analogy, we can talk about inner time also. There is an inner time and there is an inner time travel, and that inner time travel is being articulated through certain kind of accounts of the past, or something which looks like the account of the past. That account of the past is probably not the known past of the known time, but there is a time of the inner world, there is a time of the contemplative world, and how that can be accounted. All these things gradually are coming out, and foundations of this are available in the Shastra approach of Indic sciences. And when you come to things like anthropology or sociology or all these fields also, what do anthropologists do? Anthropologists, for example, are known to study rituals of the various tribal communities, what whom people call tribal communities, or even much worse words are there, primitive communities, and all these things are studied. And the Indological scholars, the Sanskritists, when they approached India, they realized that the concept of ritual in the name of karma analysis, various karmas and kratus and kalpa shastra and all that, a very rigorous study of rituals is already available here. I heard from some highly respectable Indologists of the West. They asked me why you from India are so well equipped from your study of Kratu Shastra, Kalpa Shastra, and all this. You are not contributing to world anthropology. Why you are not contributing to global anthropology? The benefits of your millennia old study of rituals in such a rigorous way, you have potential to contribute. Why you people are not contributing? Why you are not coming up with ritual studies? And let me tell you that ritual studies is not all about going to temple, breaking coconuts, and all that. You have what are called as secular rituals also. All our life is basically ritualized. So ritual studies can be so broad-based and so application oriented studies, that we can analyze all behavior, including corporate behavior, government behavior, political behavior, actions, many actions as rituals. And for all such ritual analysis, even for the study of secular rituals, the ritual studies rigor, the ritual studies methodology that has already been provided in the Vedic foundations can be brought in for use. What do anthropologists do apart from ritual studies? They study the myths and mythologies of the uh, what the evolutionist Western anthropology has, using a bad word, they call them primitive savage people. Their myths and mythologies have been studied in a very rigorous way. Myth ritual relationship, rituals as reenactments of myths, and all such approaches have been there. And my PhD is on this topic of how Vedic foundations can revolutionize myth studies and myth ritual studies from the Vedic foundations. We can give uh, uh, so many concepts, such a basic foundation that is already not existing today in the existing myth ritual studies of anthropology. How from Vedic studies, Vedic approach, Vedic foundations, we can take it, we can give it a leap forward to a better study of these issues. Uh, and mind you, again, this myth ritual study or myth study within the contemporary Western academics itself is not limited to the study of primitives. uh, Contemporary novels have been studied as myths. Contemporary human life has been studied as rituals, and myth-ritual relationship within anthropology has not been limited to just the study of primitive myths and primitive rituals. Most of the contemporary European studies have got studies of contemporary movies, contemporary life, and all that, using these categories like myth ritual relationship, myth ritual analysis, and all that. So, when we say that Vedic approach gives you that kind of leap from the present cultural anthropological foundations to a better understanding, it does not mean that we are going to have a better understanding of whom evolutionist anthropology called as primitive people alone. From the developments within the contemporary studies itself, we are able to see that that kind of analysis through Joseph Campbell kind of studies, or any other such similar studies of how myth continues in the contemporary society, ritual continues in the contemporary societies. We are able to bring that analysis to the study of contemporary world, corporate world, political world, and all that also. And if you go to things like issues that are studied by sociologists, uh, anthropology and sociology almost cover some common areas like family, marriage systems, kinship, uh, and there are many sociological issues that are common between anthropology and sociology. And for that kind of a study of society, on the one hand, we are able to show that similar rigorous study of society in the form of identifying various marriage systems, identifying various family systems, analyzing kinship ideas, all that already existed in the Vedic system. But as I already told you, by doing what probably our predecessors in Vedic studies have not done, we can show the connections of all these issues, for example, with how a jiva is defined in the Vedic system, how Nara, human, is defined as part of other Bhutani, and how the animate nature or inanimate nature or superanimate nature of human is defined in this system. So, how human is defined basically, what is the definition of human being within the Vedic system and all that, we are able to show that the foundations of a Vedic understanding of human groups, how groups interact with each other, individuals of a group interact with each other, how the Vedic system provides the foundations of that kind of understanding, say, for example, from psychology. And let me repeat, this psychology and anthropology connection, psychology and sociology connection is already happening in these so-called interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary departments. I've seen at Chicago when I was uh, teaching at Chicago, I saw that there is a department in the University of Chicago which is a combination of anthropology and psychology. They call it, I think, something like human and personality department, human and personality studies department, which is a combination of anthropology and psychology. So this we already have, these connections is already there. So by looking at the psychological foundations, say from the Vedantic, Yogic, Ayurvedic, and all the various shastras that dealt with the psychological aspects of human, we can come to the foundations of anthropology and sociology and revolutionize the present anthropological and sociological understanding of group interactions and issues like crime and crime control, reformation, deviance, suicidal tendencies, all these things which have been studied by sociologists. Uh, the foundations that are provided in the Vedic Shastras that dealt with this, we can bring in. You may ask me why such kind of study has not been done by the Vedic scholars, Shastric scholars earlier, that we are now able to do it. See, the question uh, is always the problem that you address. If you are facing a problem, say, for example, of reforming a criminal, or helping a person with a suicidal tendency, uh, whether you can help that person of a suicidal tendency from a yogic exercise or Ayurvedic exercise or a Vedantic exercise, or through what kind of a counseling you can help him. If you took it up, when you see that you have a certain Shastra which is already coming to use for you, you would not be guided by the kind of questions that are addressed by the contemporary society in the society which existed earlier. So the problem raising itself, or the method of addressing the problem itself in the pre-modern Indian society was guided by the pre-modern Indian culture. So, if we are addressing the same questions from a different perspective, starting from a different origin, addressing a different goal, and all that, it is because the present in the present world society, present global society itself is governed by cultural foundations which are different from the pre-modern Indic society. There is no use blaming or praising the present cultural foundations. They are what they are. They are there. They exist. They are given for us now. Because these are different, we are compelled to re-engineer the existing Vedic knowledge or existing Indic knowledge in such a way that we address the present problems in the way the present human is addressing them, the way present human is facing them and asking us to address. So, from that perspective, if we are able to show that Vedic system and Indic system of analyzing the issues, if not from the labels of anthropology or sociology or economics or history, or any of these conventional university academic disciplinary taxonomies, but from knowledge areas, from the perspective of problem areas, from the perspective of human questions that are addressed today, then we would not only be helping the Indian society, will be helping the whole world society, will be helping the whole global society by providing answers that have not been provided from the existing academic pursuits all over the world. And before I come to the concluding part of what I want to say today, another wall compartmentalization that we are breaking in this kind of a new knowledge area building or academic disciplinary building is the difference between the skill and the knowledge area also is what we are breaking. For example, very interestingly, very strangely, the departments of public administration all over the world have been academic departments. Governance, for example, the issue that I told you is a trigger for all these series of talks, is addressed by public administration departments. It has been an academic department. It is not a professional course. We do not, for example, have an MPA, Master of Public Administration course, which is very similar to MBA, Master of Business Administration. Whereas MBA is a practical course, professional course. There is no such MPA. There is no such Master of Public Administration course. In France, bureaucracy training is part of bureaucracy recruitment. So there they have a practical course of bureaucracy training. But in India, bureaucracy recruitment happens through a competitive examination, and people are tested for general awareness, current affairs awareness, and all that, and they are directly taken into the bureaucracy. And public administration courses or MA public administration, they hang differently into a university system. There is no coherence or connection established between the practical aspects of administration, leadership, and the theoretical understanding that is provided in these academic departments of the universities. Whereas our program, our plan under Indic Knowledge Systems program of Indic Academy is to have a cycling between the practical aspects of actual skills of governance, actual skills of administration, and the theorization from the practical leadership to the leadership theory, and that kind of a cycling of knowledge base, knowledge data, abstraction, taxonomy, all that uh, is the idea. And for that, the philosophical foundations, the theoretical foundations are intended to be drawn from the Vedic foundations. Same thing with other areas also, law and ethics or environmental studies or aesthetic studies. Everywhere, the demand today at all the academic institutes is not to be purely theoretical. That is the basic problem we are able to see at many universities. The students are no longer happy with the existing courses. They come back repeatedly saying, okay, what do I do with this? So this whole clapping inside a seminar hall, saying that I brought a revolution of analysis of a particular problem inside my seminar room, and enjoying in a paradise of scholars, that okay, I'm happy analyzing the problem without actually showing or realizing in what way that is going to be uh, professionally useful or practically useful. It is no longer attractive, it is no longer being received by students. So the kind of inquiry, the kind of activity, the kind of teaching that we intend to do under the Indic knowledge systems of humanities and social sciences area here is also breaking the wall between theory and practice. That is pure skill courses and pure theory courses, pure academic courses and pure professional courses. So the intention is to make all these courses as professional come academic courses, practical come theoretical courses, and establish a connection between theory and practice through abstraction of practice into theory and application of theory into practice while going into the deep foundations where these academic disciplinary boundaries do not actually exist. They all come into existence only because of our specific problems of inquiry that we are addressing. Okay. So with this, I think
There are a couple of questions.
yeah, please.
Yes. So I will read out the first few, and then afterwards it will open it to others to directly ask them. So the first question was by let's say J. Is J or J G, doesn't calling some of our own stories, Puranas, Itihasa, etc. as mythology itself disparage Indic knowledge?
This you have to, whoever has asked the question has to get into what is called as semantics. These words like myth and mythology have undergone a lot of semantic engineering, conscious engineering, and also these words in course of semantic change, in the course of language change, in natural language history, have undergone some changes. These words by themselves do not carry any pejorative or negative meaning. So, if you want to, if you are under the impression that by calling Itihasas and Puranas as mythology, we are okay. Most of the times this comes from the belief that Itihasas and Puranas are actual histories and mythology is not history. So, calling Itihasas and Puranas as mythologies is not making it history. That is why it is bad. So, if you are coming from there, I would like to tell you that we are in this approach here, we are critiquing the very category of history. We are analyzing very different ways of looking at the past. History is as only one way of looking at the past. Okay, so mythology or mythological way of looking at the past is also a valid way of looking at the past. That's a different thing. And how the knowledge of myths can be a competitively different way of looking at knowledge or truth. You probably need to attend courses on myth analysis or mythology analysis based on various philosophical understandings that we have got from the West and the Vedic system also. Okay.
Yeah. The second question is by Kanchan Gogateji. Can we have Indic framework for literature analysis, not linguistic or grammatical aspects? That's what Alankara is about? Alankara Shastra?
Alankara Shastra is Indic approach to literature only. But you have anything else in your mind than Alankara Shastra being Indic approach to literature analysis? You have any better specific question about that?
Kanchanji?
I think she has to be unmuted by the host or herself.
No, she can unmute.
Can you hear me now? Is it audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Yeah. So it was regarding, actually I'm doing my PhD, so where I'm doing intertextuality. It is in my second question I have put it. So intertextuality, that very concept, when I read, it's a Western semantic concept, but I found it the foundation to be very, very Indic. Of course, they have not attributed it. It could be the parallel which only I can find out, I am echoing. But like our Sanskrit saying that goes, that ekam sat bahuda vipra vadanti. So our very methodology, our darshanas are intertextual, I feel. So I just wanted to find out some parallels of intertextuality and Indic framework on literary criticism.
Yeah, okay. So basically, Alankara Shastra has a theorization of the approach to literature in the Indic tradition. But talking about intertextuality, actually, it is not of much use quoting things like Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahudha Vadanti kind of high level philosophical statements. By high level, I don't say they are very great or something like that. Superficial at the top level analysis. It is better to show, talk about concepts like ekavakyata. There is a concept called ekavakyata, and how ekavakyata is based on a cultural group, for example. Is there ekavakyata between Puranas and Vedas? That is intertextuality. So the Veda Purana Ekavakyata, that is the same idea being talked about in two different ways through Vedas and Puranas. There, that kind of intertextual analysis is being done in the Indic tradition. So we have to go to those rigorous tools of intertextual analysis that have already been employed in the Indic tradition to be able to show how intertextuality already had Indic foundations. And second thing we need to do is to show how Ekavakyata is a better concept than the available Western intertextual analysis concepts. Okay, so one example, Ekavakyata is one example of intertextuality analysis available in the Indic tradition. So the approach that we want to take in this series of talks is to also show how we can contribute to the global knowledge systems and improve them further to solve their existing problems. Not only claim that we already have. We want to show that they are better. They are more helpful. They are able to solve the problems.
Yes.
Okay, next question, please.
Just one thing, Nagaraj, are we going to have throw any light on Artha Sangraha also? So,
Artha Sangraha is a Mimamsa text. Mimamsa is an interpretative field, hermeneutics field. In the present series of talks, we may not be able to cover Artha Sangraha as such, but when we start full-fledged courses on all the different social sciences and humanities knowledge areas that we are going to establish, yes, at least a basic introduction to Artha Sangraha will be provided.
A couple of practical questions by Anirudh Naveen. Are Indian universities conducive for carrying out historical research using an Indic approach? Or, as is purported by some, does the exalted position accorded to Marxist historiography act as a barrier to carrying out such research? I'm inquiring as an 18-year-old just embarking on this path, and considering your experience, would be blessed to get your perspective.
Yeah,
as many claim that studying abroad is a more viable option.
One thing we can do, Anirudhji, is that we can actually we have an advantage of what is called as postmodern studies today. It is these postmodern studies which have uprooted or unsettled the foundations of the existing what is called as modernity. Marxism is a modern paradigm, you know, and so such modern foundations of Marxism can be questioned from, for example, from post-Marxism, post-structuralism, and while using these tools, postmodern tools, which are very useful in giving a leap to the present understanding of looking at the past, we can actually make present university academics realize the value of looking alternative ways of looking at the past through indic ways of looking at the past. So for that, hard work is needed. We cannot simply sit back and say, okay, I have my Shivaji story, which is a good story. You are not believing, I would believe, and all that. But we have to go to the philosophical foundations of what is history, how the very paradigm of history came into existence, and how we can unsettle the foundations of the very category of history.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
next question, please.
Yeah, so basically another Soumya ji is planning to pursue PhD in South Asian studies and want to know how the resources and options respect is in India versus US, Germany, UK, etc. How much respect does a degree from a place like MIT, Harvard, etc. Provide versus programs in India? In these, so if they want to do some work in this kind of an area.
I probably could not understand the question properly, but if the question is whether the degrees from some highly ranked global universities are required for this kind of understanding, this kind of IKS, Indic knowledge systems, and all that. I don't think presently that is a possibility. Presently, the studies of all these issues are do not even exist in the Western universities. Where let me try to articulate my answer a little better. There is a Western university studying governance, for example, and there is a Western university, probably the same university, studying Indology or Sanskrit studies. The Indology department of, say, Harvard, or Sanskrit studies department of Harvard, how much this particular Harvard University Indology department is helping the governance studying department of Harvard University by providing the foundations of governance ideas within Vedic system. If that is the question, absolutely zero. They are not doing that. All that the present Indology or Sanskrit studies departments of universities like Harvard, Cornell, Columbia are doing is they are thinking that by studying Indian past, Indian history, they are helping the governance studying departments or history studying departments of their universities to study one particular part of the world called India, and how their international studies or strategic studies or political movements can be helped by understanding the present Indian society on the basis of past Indian society, and all that. That can be helped by Indology or Sanskrit studies. That's what they are doing. They are not actually I see that some of them nowadays are trying to see how much of their Indological or Sanskrit studies knowledge of, say, for example, Rasa Shastra will be helpful for bettering the aesthetics understanding of the Western society. They are now very recently, some 5 years, 6 years ago, they started that kind of study of usefulness of South Asian knowledge for the other departments of the universities. Otherwise, such a thing has not happened. So, your degrees, if you want to get a degree from the West, then for what purpose you want to get a degree from a Western university is all left to you. The kind of course that we are trying to offer through these series of talks, I don't think they offer. It is not available. If I have answered your question correctly or not, I do not know.
Yeah.
If that was your question at all or not is also not clear.
That was really superb, Nagarajji. And yes, you are right. They don't offer the opportunity to bring Indicology or Vedic studies into various other, like there's no collaboration.
Yeah.
I agree. I guess I was wondering, what I'll discuss this with you later. I have I'm in your other programs as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, with that, I think we will conclude for today. We are a little beyond time, and we'll. So, what would be our next topic for the benefit of the participants next week?
Let us start with ethics and aesthetics, law and ethics, and beauty and bliss.
Okay.
Ethics and aesthetics.
So we'll meet again the same time next Saturday, 6:30 to 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Thank you so much. No.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Very helpful.